Hey, and welcome back to the Passive Pathway, the place where we turn ideas, insight, and inspiration into practical steps for living abundantly. I am Nelson, aka Nelly, your guide on this journey, and today we have a very special guest who is going to light up your thinking and maybe even your family dinner conversations. Joining me today is John Knowlton, entrepreneur, pastor, teacher, and multi-generational wealth architect. John has built businesses, guided CEOs, and now helps families create governance frameworks that not only preserve wealth but actually bring people closer together. We're talking about something every family will face: how to pass down your legacy, values, and purpose without accidentally starting a silent battle over who gets what. All right, buckle up. This isn't your usual sit quietly and listen kind of chat. John, I hope you brought your stories, your wisdom, and maybe a sprinkle of family secrets we can all learn from, because we're about to turn theory into real-life magic. Welcome, John, to the Passive Pathway podcast.
Nelly, I so appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. And I just hope this is a blessing to you and all of your listeners and viewers.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. So, how do you define success and why?
Well, Nelly, thank you for asking that question. I've written a book called Thinking for Success. And success is something that I have thought about a lot. And I realized the way I think about success is it's not a dollar amount. It's not the attainment of a thing. I'll tell you, when I was a young man, I used to think if I could buy a 40-foot Hunter sailboat, then I would have made it. That was an immature thought. And now my more mature thinking tells me this, that everyone was created with a particular purpose. Nellie is unique, John is unique, Susan is unique, and success is coming closer and closer to fulfilling our unique purpose every day. And so there's an old term you might remember from geometry class called asymptote. And an asymptote is a curve that approaches but never reaches another line. And so, think about it like this way. I could say, walk halfway to that wall. Okay. Now walk halfway again. You could always go halfway closer, but never reach the wall. And I think about success as the process of continuously getting better at and more nearly fulfilling the purpose for which we were made.
Awesome. It's also, when you say purpose, of course, it's not part of the question, but when you say purpose, it's like a calling, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's true. If you were created for a purpose, then you have resources and potential and capacity to fulfill that purpose. And that purpose is almost always wrapped up in serving other people.
Exactly. Now, do you really tell your kids how much money you make?
Completely open the kimono. Nelly, we absolutely, on a quarterly basis, I send my adult children our net worth. I tell them what our investments have done. I've shown them my tax returns. I chart it. I have a chart of our income. They can see where did we come from and where are we now. Absolutely, 100% transparency.
Now, I love the word transparency because, we're talking about when you say, do you really tell your kids, but do you really tell your wife?
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to be transparent, not to your kids as well, but to your wife as well, because of course she's your other half. Actually, you become one once you get married. So for those who really believe in the
Sure.
aspect of marriage, you have to be transparent to have a successful marriage as well. And that means even finances, because otherwise, you'll land up in a in a soup. So yeah.
there's certainly no secrets between my wife and me about money. In fact, I don't know how to log into our credit card accounts. She's, she manages all of that stuff. So we have complete trust in each other, and just the way that our family life has worked. I've been in charge of revenue, and she's been in charge of, buying all the things that we need to run the household. So we agree on a spending plan or a budget together each year, and then on a quarterly basis or so, we just assess and talk about it together.
Wonderful.
We have a weekly meeting, my wife and I do, which we've done for more than 20 years, every week, a weekly meeting, and that includes a financial discussion as well.
Wonderful. And you brought in a nice word there, trust. I use that word a lot because in the word itself, trust, if you noticed, there's TRUST. That first letter T is a team, okay? And if the T drops, the relationship rusts. RUST. So trust is very strong. So the T is the team, and if the team or the T drops, it rusts. So the relationship rusts. And what happens when anything that rusts? You know what the end result is. So it's very important to build trust and to maintain that trust. So just like you do with your wife, I mean, of course, that's so important. Now, how do you maintain long-term relationships?
Oh, man. So communication is the basis of life. And so, as I said, my wife and I have a scheduled meeting. Now we've moved it to Mondays, but every Monday afternoon we meet and we kind of have this agenda. And people are like, you run your marriage like a business? And I said, I don't know if it's like a business, but you need to have consistent communication. People will skip having little conversations, and then they let issues build up, and then they have an explosion, a big, scary conversation. And so when you can have consistent little conversations, deal with things as they come up, share what's on your heart, hear what the other person has to say, you don't have to have big, scary conversations.
Absolutely.
So the first point I would say, Nellie, and how to maintain long-term relationships is consistent communication. And then the second is an attitude of seeking the other's good. The definition of love, the New Testament definition of love, it comes from a Greek word agape, and that's the willingness to put another's interests ahead of my own. And if you can have that as your sort of operating system, and coupled with communication, consistent communication, there shouldn't be any issues in terms of long-term relationship.
I love the way where you say, it's like a business meeting. And I completely agree with you. It's a matter of dialogue. When there's constant dialogue in a marriage, you're actually resolving matters that could become, a forest fire. So you're resolving at the early stage. And that's very important. Why do we have meetings? Why do we have briefings in a business environment? It's the same thing. Marriages also should be planning, organizing, managing. Everything should be considered like a business. But that is professional business. This is personal business. This is business of life, business of emotions, business of interaction, business of communication. So I respect what you say. And it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And that maintains and keeps a relationship strong and healthy. Very important. Now, how have you provided financial education to your kids?
Right. So you mentioned that I've built businesses. The main part of my career was building wealth management businesses. So helping other families manage their family's wealth. And so you might think that I've had some sort of structured course of study for financial education. But in fact, children actually more is caught than is taught. In other words, they absorb what's going on around them. And that's how they learn. That's true of all of us.
True.
Although we've built these, education system that is systematic. but the reality is we catch more than is taught to us. And so I think the primary place of education and values transmission is the family dinner table.
Yes.
And so sometimes people will come home and ask a question, what's for dinner? But that's not the important question. The important question is, what's dinner for? And what dinner is for, we need some nutrition, of course, we need calories and macronutrients, but the real purpose of dinner in a family context is for children to observe their parents interacting with each other, interacting with the kids, and describing how they've interacted in the world. And
Wow.
so at dinner time at my house, we talk about our day. And mom and dad have two questions. How was your day? Okay, how was your day? And that's where we get to talk about what we've done. Who did we interact with? How did we handle a situation, right? Describing how do we make our way in the world? And then the second question is, what do you need tonight? And so the answer to the first question, how was your day? I might learn that my wife is stressed out from whatever had happened. And so that guides what I'm going to ask for. When I ask her, what do you need tonight? She might have said she's stressed out, and I'm going to say, I don't need anything. How about I clean up dinner, or I'll give the kids a bath, or whatever the case. But if I've learned she'd had a good day, maybe there's a different kind of an ask. So the kids are learning, how do you interact with each other and the world? Now, I am answering your question about financial education. I would always talk about the way that I worked with my clients, the way that I worked on buying a business, the way that I worked on selling a business, the other professionals that I would interact with, and all of that conversation and description of what am I doing with investments and people and relationships is financial education. So financial education is not necessarily about how to analyze a stock or a cash on cash real estate deal or something like that. Those are tools, but what you really need to know is how to interact in the world as a person who's providing value to other people and then receiving value as a result of that.
Awesome. I just love the way it's so in depth. It's so in depth. And actually, people don't think about this, literally just talking over over dinner table with your wife or with family, with kids. We're so engrossed with life's battles and with, what's happening with our work and with our phone, and half the time, of course, many a times you just say, don't keep the phone when you're having dinner. Of course, you shouldn't be focused on the phone. You should be focusing on the dinner and, your family or the people that your guests or whatever. But yes, this is so important. And I just love the way that you've brought about this specific thing about asking and what happens during the day, because these things are really actually very important. And I think I'm going to pick up those tips as well from your end. That's really, really, special there. And it's something I'm sure the listeners are making notes of this and, take action and put it in your life as well as something that's mechanically, it should go into your system and then, it'll really work well for you as well. I wanted to ask you one very, interesting question. It's actually close to, something that I feel which is a very delicate question. Have you disinherited your children?
Mm. My kids have disinherited themselves. And here's what I mean by that. My wife and I have invited our kids into a process of shared governance. But let me back up. Simon Sinek has told us to start with why. Why, how, what? And the why is we plan and intend to build a multi-generation family, a family whose values are intact and whose relationships are consistent over multiple generations. That's the why. The how is a process of shared governance, and the what is money. We're building a family through a process of shared governance of our family's money and wealth. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we've invited our children, adult children, into co-management of our family's wealth. And as part of that process, we've gone through an extensive series of questions and ideation around our family's mission, vision, values, our thought process around philanthropy and investing status and processes and all of this. And our children have agreed that our family's wealth should be a force for good for generations. And in order for that to be true, we can't then split it up after we die into little pieces that then get squandered and frittered away. And so our adult kids have agreed and decided they're not going to split up our family's wealth when it comes time for me and my wife to no longer need it. Instead, they are participating in the management and they get the benefits of that wealth now. So for example, one of our kids became engaged to be married last year. So as a family board, we decided what should be the family's contribution. So this isn't them asking and begging me for money, but we as a family decided how much should every kid get when they get engaged. So we had the first example that we all agreed on together. And then my second child just got engaged last week. And so he knows, here's the amount of money that I'm going to get from the family as a result of his commitment to form his own family. So that's one example of a benefit of being part of the shared governance process. A second example is my son is a general contractor in Bend, Oregon. Bend is a very hot real estate market, high prices. There's a lot of people want to move there. There's constrained supply of housing, and so prices are very high. So his construction company and our family have an agreement. The family buys real estate that could benefit from value add. His company does the work.
Sweet.
And then he charges us cost. He doesn't mark up the costs. And then we split profits. So his company has consistent work. Our family has a trusted partner to receive some income from the profits of the sale of these properties. So yes, I've disinherited my kids because they want it. They want to participate in this process of building a multi-generational family, which is a force for good for generations.
But I think it's a very smart and a strategic way of disinheritance, basically, because they're actually, I would say, partnership, like in a business. The value that they're putting in or their efforts that they're putting in the family, they're reaping the harvest by actually having the inheritance that's set out for them is what they're getting. So it's a give and take, but it's a very scientifically, if I were to say, it's a very a result oriented family, which gets everything, where everything is doing its job, and the results, of course, they get it at the right time when that happens. So yeah, it's very beautifully put. I really love that aspect. Now, talking of which, John, I have some surprise questions for you. So like I said, I have those bonus questions for you. So I'm ready for those. Now, how can families avoid the classic inheritance silence where no one talks about money until it's too late?
Yeah, that's the trap we're seeking actively to avoid. And in fact, in traditional estate planning processes, there's often some very restrictive language built into trusts and wills and things like this, where people try to impose their values on their kids from the grave through this contract language, right? Trust language. And that is like 80 years too late to start teaching or 60 years too late.
Tell me about it.
Passing your values on. And so I think this process of shared governance addresses that issue. So we're transparent. There's no secrets or I can't remember the exact phrase you used there, but there's no secrets. We're completely transparent. Everybody knows. So there's no secrets or questions about what our mom and dad have and how much are they going to give us and all this kind of stuff. And they are participating actively through multiple meetings a year in both our philanthropic distribution strategy. By the way, my daughter leads our philanthropy committee,
Oh, I love
and
that.
then our investment process. So they're learning, how do we give money away? How do we think about it? How do we ensure that the entities we give money to align with our family's values? And
Awesome.
so my daughter's built a whole distribution request form that
Beautiful.
ensures that we're all up to speed on how an organization conducts its affairs and how it specifically aligns with our mission, vision, and values as a family. And so talking about it and having a process and structure to do that on a regular basis, little conversations, is the key to avoiding that terrible, terrible trap that you just talked about.
It's so beautiful that I've had the privilege and honor to meet such wonderful special guests on my podcast. You are one of them as well. And when people talk about philanthropy, I am a big, big, big fan or devotee of philanthropy, because I believe, and I've said that, I believe we have a purpose. We have a purpose, a mission when we are on earth. We are not here just because of having a Lamborghini standing outside or a mansion or a Ferrari. Those who want it, fair enough. But I believe in more about helping children who don't have roofs, feeding kids who don't have food, getting them to school, providing the things, if I could, that's something me and my wife really are so devoted to. That's going out. Philanthropy is really the thing that, before we leave planet Earth, we should be doing as much good as possible, because the more you do good outside, the universe fills you tenfold. Of course, you do it without expectation. If you do it with expectation, it's no use. Do it without expectation, the universe will throw it back at you. So I love that. And your daughter's doing that. Hats off to her. Brilliant. And you're doing a great job with that collaboration and this family stuff. It's really great. Now, in your experience, what's one value families think they share but often realize they don't when designing a governance charter?
So, Nellie, no one has asked that question of me. So you have caught me off guard, but I will provide an answer for you. I think families think that they share a sense of the future that looks the same, but that's not necessarily true. In other words, our kids may be more materialistically oriented, or they may be more altruistically oriented. And mom and dad, right, could be different on the spectrum. And so it's, I think, crucial to have conversations about what makes me happy, what satisfies me. And we tend to change over time. I shared when I was a young man in my 20s, I thought that owning a big sailboat was the key to my happiness. And I could buy several of them now, and I just don't care about it at all. And so I drive a 6-year-old car, and right. So the material stuff just doesn't really matter to me much anymore, except as it can be a tool to do good in the world.
Absolutely.
And so I just think it's critical that we have conversations where people can freely voice their opinions and what's important to them, and that we can hear it in a way that that doesn't cast judgment, but we need to find the common ground if we're going to have a shared governance approach.
I like that word, common ground. Yes, it's very important to find common ground so that we don't come into any arguments or certain misconceptions or, something that's there. And talking of which, you brought another word, which is very interesting, being materialistic. When we talk of materialistic, then we talk about money and finance and, big amounts of money. So what is a common misconception affluent parents have about protecting their kids from entitlement, and what actually works?
Yeah. Some parents are really scared about having trust fund babies or Nepo babies, right?
Yes.
They don't want their kids to act entitled, to be takers rather than givers.
Exactly.
And so one of the tools that many affluent parents are doing is disinheriting their kids so that they don't lose the work ethic. To me, that's so almost like abdication. You're just sort of giving up and saying it's a lost cause, and so I'm not going
Raising hands.
I'm not going to give my kids any resources. Therefore, they can't be nepo babies. The approach that we have taken is to fully engage. Right? We're not throwing up our hands. We're working together with our kids. Yesterday was Thanksgiving in the United States, and my oldest daughter was over, and I'm thinking about a real estate purchase. And so I had her sit right next to me, and we walked through the buy analysis and my spreadsheets and whatnot so that she could understand how am I thinking about this investment. And she had a lot of questions, and she wanted to understand, and why are we doing this? And I want to do this so that mom and I don't have to take money out of the portfolio so that we can all give more money away, right? Those kinds of things. And so I think that full engagement, full contact sport, if you will, is the key to not raising nepo babies rather than the abdication and disinheritance approach.
I agree. And on that note, I definitely want to say a very happy Thanksgiving to you. Well, it was yesterday, but a very happy Thanksgiving to you. Be safe, stay blessed, and in good health, in abundance. That's very important. And that goes to all my listeners. A very, very happy Thanksgiving to you. I'm sure you had a great time, celebrated well, but most important, Thanksgiving is about thanking the people who are around you, your loved ones, your family, because that's what keeps you warm and together. Now, John, can you share a time when shared governance brought a fractured family closer together?
Well, the process of talking through mission, vision, values, telling the stories of the mom and dad's generation one, their experiences with wealth and poverty and trouble and success, how did their faith inform their decision making. Going through that process has an incredible effect, Nellie, of bringing people closer together. And I'll just use my family as an example, which is that as we've gone through this process and increased the frequency of our conversations about important things, like we're not talking about soccer scores, we're talking about life and talking about the future, generations in the future. While we were talking about money, that's the what I've discovered is that our conversations about everything else have become much more rich. So I wouldn't say that our family was fractured, but we are engaging in greater depth and greater transparency about all kinds of things, relationships, hopes, dreams, the future, all these kinds of things are much richer. And that is an unexpected side effect that I found to be very gratifying.
And that's good, right? That's when you say unexpected side of it, it's wonderful.
Yes.
Fabulous. Now, I'm just taking the liberty because I'm just loving this podcast with you. And if a family wants to start small with governance, what's the very first tradition, practice, or meeting you recommend?
Great question. I love it. I would start at the dinner table and start by saying, hey, let's have a dinner with no phones. These things are...
That's the most difficult one.
These are scientifically designed... These are scientifically designed distraction machines, Nellie. We have the smartest people on earth thinking about how to keep you addicted to that phone.
Aren't they smartphones?
They're smart people getting us addicted. So then you could start with the two questions that we ask. How was your day? And you don't let the teenagers get away with a one-word answer. Tell me about who did you talk to and what did you talk about, right? Kind of really dig in and press into that. So you have to get into the habit of having conversations before you can have these real important conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
So first step, let's have dinner with no phones and actually look at each other and talk.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, you got to develop the muscle of having conversations, little conversations that aren't emotionally fraught before you can move into having bigger, scarier conversations. Secondly, I would suggest that mom and dad tell the story of their economic journey from what was their finances and work and their material status like when they met, and what was the process like to get from there to here. And that often prompts questions from your kids, and it will provide empathy. Kids tend to think of their parents one-dimensionally, or you've always been like this, whatever this is. And it's not true. We've all had a history and a path and all that. And so telling that story can really start to engage your kids into more in-depth and valuable conversations. And for my wife, Julie, and me, we've had these sort of milestone decisions that we can look back on. And wow, that was really key. And for us, that's critical. Our faith is critical in that. And so we've been able to kind of say, here's how we felt prompting from God. Here's what we did. Here's the result. And so it ties in our life's journey with our faith story and allows our kids to start to think about an integrated life in the same way.
Awesome. Breaking the ice is very important. And then, of course, then you set the platform and then you throw in the big ones and then you get their attention. And actually, but in your case that you've said, you've put your family in such a way that they're already programmed, that they understand the essence of the family and, of course, their position and how they're going to be doing what. And that, I think, is very important. Talking of which, you worked with families on multi-generational planning. Now, what's the biggest aha moment most parents miss when thinking about their legacy?
Most parents misunderstand what their kids want. So parents who think about money a lot think their kids think about money a lot. And it's not necessarily true. So your kids might be more interested in time together than give me the money. Or they might be more interested in, I really have a heart for poor people who don't have access to water in sub-Saharan Africa or something like that. And so the mistake or the aha that parents will have is that, our kids have slightly different values, or they think other things are important. And so that those open, transparent conversations are so essential to learning what's important to the other family members. And we can learn from our kids and maybe join them or apply some resources towards the things that are important to them too.
John, what do you think? This is an illusion, or is it a misinterpretation, or is it a misconception that they think
it's miscommunication. I think it's just
even worse.
we just haven't talked about it, and so we don't
know,
and so we make assumptions.
Wow, that is so true. And when we think of that, here's a question that comes connected to that. Shared governance sounds sophisticated. But how can a family actually start doing it without feeling like they're signing up for a board meeting?
Yeah. Well, I kind of like board meetings, but I know that's not everyone's cup of tea. So how about at Christmas time, you could make decisions together about who you're going to give some money to. Many people, especially in the United States, anyways, that's my context, they give money away at the end of the year, in part because the government incentivizes charitable giving, and people want to make sure they get all their tax benefit before the close of the tax year. Okay. So we could say, hey, we're going to give away $500. Everybody chime in. Who do you think we should give it to? So you could just start small, give away $100, whatever, a process of, hey, who should we give money to? And you start conversations. Another flip side another example of that from a family I know is at Thanksgiving in November, they give each person at the table, the Thanksgiving table, a certain amount of money. I think $100, or maybe it's more now, but
Okay.
$100, and they have to give it away to someone.
Mm,
And then at Christmas time, when they all come back together, they tell the story of who did they give the money to.
sweet.
And it's a process of, we're going to resource your giving, and then we're going to share the stories together of
Wow.
how did we select the person or the group that's going to get the money, and you begin to learn from each other what's important to you. So that's almost a game way
Exactly.
of engaging in a mutual conversation
Oh, I
about
like
money.
that. I love that. Actually, that's a very nice one. Actually, you go out, don't tell us what you did, but when you come back, then we'll all talk about it, and it's really engaging. That's a
Yeah.
really nice one. I'm sure listeners will put that down as a key one, to have on a dinner table as well. That'd be nice. And now, thinking for success is coming soon. What's a story from your book that you think every family should hear before making big financial decisions?
So Thinking for Success is a book that's intended to be used by leaders, family leaders, business leaders, ministry leaders. And what I've discovered, Nellie, is that if people would come to me with an issue, I could solve it for them. But
Mm,
then they didn't develop the tools to solve it for themselves.
mhm.
And so then I would start to give people principles.
Okay.
But I learned they couldn't really figure out how to apply the principle. And I stumbled on this tool, if you will, of telling stories. So I would tell a story, and then we would talk about it in a staff meeting, and then give it a name. And then in the future, if that story or the lesson from that story applied, we could just pull up the name, and people would remember the story, and it would help them to think better and
Nice.
perform better. And so I realized, gosh, I'm going to start forget these stories. So I began to write them down.
Oh,
And at some
absolutely.
point I realized I had 40 stories. And I said, hey, if I had 52, that'd be one a week for a year's worth of staff meetings. So I kept writing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I got to like 70 stories and hired an editor to help me select and refine the best 52. But here's one that I'll tell, Nellie. And it's it's called Creativity in a Box.
Oh.
And most people know the movie Indiana Jones, the first one with Harrison Ford. Indiana Jones is this swashbuckling archaeologist or something. Any case, there's one scene that's iconic. And as soon as I bring it up, if anybody's seen the movie, they say, oh, yeah. So Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, is standing in an alley in Marrakesh or something like this. And this guy with two scimitars is doing this wild, almost dance-like approach to him. And he's going to fight Indiana Jones. And as he gets close, Indy simply pulls out his pistol and shoots the guy dead.
Yes.
And almost everyone remembers it because we're expecting him to engage in the same type of behavior. The reality is that's not how the scene was written. The scene was written with a full choreographed response where Indiana Jones was going to be dancing all around the alley with the guy with the scimitar, and they were going to have this elaborate fight scene. But on the day that they were to shoot that movie scene, Ford woke up with the flu. And he told the director, hey, Spielberg, I can't work today. And the production budget had already been spent for that scene. They'd hired the extras, they'd blocked off the road, they had the trucks and cameras and lights and all that. And their budget would not allow them to reschedule the shoot. So the budget was a constraint. It was a box, if you will. And so they said, well, what can you do? He said, well, I could probably stand up for a minute or two. Okay. And that's how they got the scene, the iconic scene where Ford just shoots the guy with a scimitar. And he did that, and he went back to bed and stayed in his trailer all day. The result of that scene was so much better than if they had an unlimited budget and they just rescheduled it and they did the whole choreographed scene as it was originally written. The point of this story, Nellie, is that our constraints, our boxes, our budgets, whatever it is, can actually force us to be more creative than we would have been without the constraint.
I agree with you there. 100%. I completely agree with you there. Yes. I've had that situation sometimes with my podcast. I've planned out something else and I'm there at the podcast with the special guest, and you will not notice it, but I know what's happening on my end. And suddenly I'm in a box because I planned something different, but that's not how it's supposed to be. But guess what? When I get into editing and I put that together and I'm like, geez, I wish if I had done that, I mean, it would have gone the other way. But this is sounding perfect because it just worked out the way it should have been. So yeah, that is definitely understandable and you're spot on. So yeah, creativity, and it's absolutely right what you've said. So
sometimes when, especially think about a work situation, people will have heightened awareness of all the limitations. We don't have enough money, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough resources, whatever like that. And so they will ask for more resources when what they need to do is ask for more creativity.
You're killing yourself with more resources.
Yes.
Yeah. If actually you're right, because sometimes, when you're asking for resources, it's also asking for more money. And sometimes what you do is you go out and go to a bank and get loans and credits and so on and so forth. And what you've actually done is you've brought stress on yourself and you've actually dumped your creativity on the side, because now you're not going to be using the creativity. You're just going to be so stressed out. You won't have time for creativity because you're thinking how you're going to pay that money back.
You're telling my story, Nelly.
So it's pathetic. I mean, so stop, stay calm, because I always tell my listeners, do things in a calm way, because if you do things in a rush, in a hurry, you're bound to make mistakes. So stop, take a step back, think what you're doing. Is it right? Is it good for you? Is it good for the family? Is it good for the people around you? And then take action.
There you go.
Absolutely. That's brilliant, John. That's brilliant. Now, to sum it all up, because I have this last question there for you, John. If you could distill one mindset shift for families to avoid entitlement and encourage stewardship, what would it be?
Nelly, I'm going to go back to something you said early in this conversation when you talked about trust. The T is teamwork. If you lose the T, then you have rust.
Absolutely.
But even a smaller segment of that word is US, us, TRUST, us. It's about us. To the extent that we focus on our individual selves, we're going to be selfish, small, constrained. We're going to seek to extract from other people. When we think about us, we're thinking about the entity, the organism, if you will, and what can we give to it so that the whole thing becomes more healthy.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, beautiful. It is so perfect. Yes, exactly. And us, when it comes to us, we set aside our egos. We set aside all that is pertaining to me. It should be us, where we do things together. When you do things together, it's a different kind of an energy, because we all revolve around energy and everything, the vibes and everything. These are so important. And it's magical. See, we just brought all that theory into a magical environment. So, John, it's been a pleasure. Fantastic. Thank you so much once again. And I'm sure our listeners who've listening to today's podcast would be really enjoying this and, have put down notes and, taken notes and put down all that, information. And John, I want to leave the floor open to you. If you have anything that you would like to end the podcast with, you need to say something to the listeners, or you want to go ahead and with regards to your book, or where we can find that information, where we could download your website, etc. Go ahead.
Sure. Yoel, thank you so much, Nelly. It's been a real pleasure having this conversation. And so the book is called Thinking for Success, 52 Stories That Upgrade Productivity, Problem Solving, and Relationships. Mm-hmm. And you can go to our website, thinkingforsuccess.com. And we have an Insights tab where I and then my wife, Julie, and I are all the time adding 2 or 3 times a week. We're adding content, short little snippets, videos about how to talk to each other, how to deal with trouble, how to have a long marriage and a long relationship, how to work with your kids, how to think about money. And so that's completely free. People can go grab any nuggets you want, share them, apply them, please. And if you've learned something and something works for you, I'd love to hear about it. It's just super gratifying to hear back from people who say, you know what, I tried that creativity in a box thing, and here's what I found out. And so I just love to hear back from people.
Oh, awesome. Please, and definitely, like John said, definitely get back to us. Put it in the comments. Put your experiences there. Send us emails, send us messages. We love to hear from you. I love to hear from my listeners and what's new and what they heard on the podcast and how they tried it. And I'll pass that message on to John as well. And I'll tell them, John, they heard that and they put that creativity in the box. Actually, so, it's interesting, actually, John. Sometimes you say, think out of the box. In creativity, we always say, think out of the box. And you put it, creativity in the box.
Yes. Yes.
So that's awesome. Anyway, awesome. Thank you so much, John, once again. And people, if you want to know more about John, his details and his bio is in the contributors section. If you want to reach out to him, his website's there as well. The link is there, so you could click on that and you could reach out to him. And there's a contact page there, so you could go ahead and message him there as well. So there are a lot of ways to reach out to him. There are a lot of ways to reach out to me as well. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you once again, John, for your time, for your energy, for your space, for your moments, which have been very fruitful. And I'm sure the listeners have liked it as well. Thank you so much once again.
My pleasure.
John, wow, that was a treasure trove. You've managed to mix heart, practical wisdom, and humor in a way that makes even the most daunting family conversations feel doable. Thank you for sharing your insights and showing us that wealth really can be a force for good. To everyone listening, today's takeaways are clear. Legacy isn't just money. It's the clarity of purpose you pass down, the conversations you intentionally have, and the structures you create to keep your family connected for generations. Wealth without wisdom is like a treasure chest without a map. John just gave us the map. I'm Nelson, aka Nelly, and this has been another episode of The Passive Pathway. Stay inspired, keep thinking creatively, and remember, life's better when your family thrives together.
Wake up slow, the coffee hot. Money moves while you are not. No more hustle, no more grind. Earn it smart and save some time. Plug it and tune out the noise. Watch your crypto make some noise. Click some streams and big dreams. Living light with passive themes. This the passive pathway. Freedom meets your payday. No boss, no clock, just Wi-Fi latte. We be chillin', we bout billin'. No limits, just willin'. Earn smart each day. On the passive pathway. Sunrise high, the world below. Cash still flows while you let go. No more stress, no more chase. Money works at its own pace. Set it up, then walk away. Watch the numbers grow each day. Hands are free, but pockets full. Passive life so beautiful. This for passive pathway. Freedom meets your payday. No boss, no clock, just Wi-Fi latte. We be chillin', we be billin'. No limits, just willin'. Earn it smart each day. On the passive pathway. This the passive pathway. Freedom meets your payday. No boss, no clock, just Wi-Fi latte. We be chillin', we be billin', no limits, just win, earn it smart each day.